All right, it's February 13th, 2018, and this is WDYTA. I'm Gavin.
I'm Alan.
I'm Drea.
And tonight we're going to talk about role-playing games. So, Alan, I guess we'll start off with you. What do you think about role-playing games?
So we were discussing this a minute ago, but my experience is I used to play some D&D when I was younger with my friends who pretty much once they all moved away, we stopped playing. But the closest I get nowadays to a role-playing type game would be something like Descent, or I guess, I don't know if you count Betrayal as a role-playing game. I guess
that's probably a borderline. I think there's a lot of like role-playing light board games.
Role-playing light is a good way to describe that. Or even like, do you remember Hero Quest at all?
Yeah, actually, that was I was gonna bring that up, but yeah.
I have 2 copies of that here still, one in mint and one missing pieces. But like I've been trying to get back into D&D. I actually have the new what are they on now? 5th edition?
Yeah.
So the 5th edition starter pack. So I can, because when I used to play, I never really got real in depth and learned all those rules hardcore, because I was just I was having fun. I was creating my characters, and one of my friends a DM, and I would just play. It was a good time. Yep. But then now, since I'm older, I was it'd be nice to run my own game.
Yeah. I think the thing that's going to be, I guess, fairly interesting why I wanted to have this conversation was because I think the 3 of us have various perspectives on role-playing games, and probably, I think most of this episode is going to be about Dungeons and Dragons, because that's where the breadth of my experience is from. But I'm a veteran player who's been playing for years on and off. I've taken breaks here and there, but I've basically had a game going since freshman year of high school, which would have been 15 years ago or something.
Are you playing with people?
What's that?
You said you had a game going since freshman year of high school. Are you
not the same game? Not the same game.
Oh, okay.
Different groups. I've played with a bunch of different groups. I've played characters. I've DM'd. And Drea, this is her first experience recently with Dungeons and Dragons and role playing in general. And then your perspective being you used to play and now you're getting back into it.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to get back into it. It's not. Right. It's the problem I'm running into is people who don't, how do I say this? They don't want to give it a shot.
They don't.
And they've never played?
Yeah, they've never played, and they only know it from this perspective of oh, that's too nerdy, that's too geeky for me. I don't want to be associated with that. Or then there's also the polar opposite, where some people are I don't have time for that. It's too complicated to learn. Let's just play a board game that takes 45 minutes, right? Right. A game that's going to take 3 hours, 4 hours. But it's if I can just convince them to sit down. So my friends and I do a board game night every couple of weeks. We try to, and I've been trying to convince them that they know that if we do a game of D&D, we're not playing 3 other board. We usually get 2 or 3 games in of different types. Like King of Tokyo, Betrayal, and Dominion. Let's just go with those 3. But they know if I'm bringing that D&D game, that's it. That's what we're playing for that rest of that night. So it's I feel like it edges on are they going to have a good time? And it's kind of just try it and trust me, you'll have a good time,
Right. Yeah. And I think that's actually kind of a hurdle to get over. That's interesting is like we were saying, they've got these role-playing light board games that are role-playing with training wheels, sort of you're going to have to basically spend one game night getting together, everybody building their characters. Right. But the thing is that there's nothing that is quite the same experience as a role-playing game. And that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up, because I wouldn't be who I am without role-playing games. Role-playing games are the reason why I wanted to be an illustrator. I wanted to be a visual storyteller. I saw the Monster Manual, I saw the amazing stuff that was in it, and went, I want to do that.
Yep.
And
you probably read the books too. I don't know if you read the books or not, but I read a ton of Dungeons and Dragons books when I was young. Yeah. The original, Dragons of the Autumn Flame, Winter and Spring were some of my
Autumn Twilight.
Autumn Twilight, yeah. Like,
yeah, that Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, the Dragonlance series. Yeah, that was actually my first introduction to fantasy, the fantasy genre, pretty much, period. Besides The Hobbit, you know.
Besides The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, which is a standard. But
yeah, but
I wouldn't say that stuff doesn't hold up as well these days. But I'm like, I don't know. I still like reading them.
What doesn't hold up? Dragonlance?
Dragonlance.
So the thing that's weird about Dragonlance for me, I know we're getting a little off subject for a second, but the thing that's weird about Dragonlance for me is once you've played D&D and you sort of understand the tropes of D&D, Dragonlance feels very cliche.
Sure. Well, the rumor is that they were writing that book while they were playing that game.
Yes. And the other thing, too, you have to realize that they wrote it, in the 80s? So those tropes weren't necessarily cliche at that time, but now it's like, oh, your whole group meets up at the local tavern and you're off to adventure. You know, it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of, you ever play like, whatever, man, World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy, meet up in a town, go from there.
That's what's interesting too, is like I didn't start playing until a year ago, and I would read stuff and I'm like, this is okay, like fantasy stuff, or like this is really good, or this is middle of the road, but I don't really know why. And then Gavin, like I would explain it to Gavin, he's like, oh, you could tell they played D&D. Oh, you could tell they played D&D. And I'm like, what? And now that I was reading a book, and I'm like, this is the 5th town they've been to where they just saved some people and now they're on the road again. Like, but something I wouldn't have noticed before, I guess, or been able to pinpoint to D&D. And like Witcher, what movie? The Witcher was like based on a Vin Diesel.
Oh. Yeah, it wasn't The Witcher. There's a Vin Diesel movie.
It's called The Last Witch Hunter.
That's it. Yeah. It's based on his D&D character.
That movie was not that bad on a side note, but
I haven't seen it. I saw him. Maybe I'll check it out.
D&D with what's that group called? The guy does like all the voices.
Oh, Critical Role. And like there was a point where I thought Vin Diesel had loaded dice because he kept rolling 20s all day. I was like, there's no way one man is rolling this many 20s in a row, but he
should try being Vin Diesel.
It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
He's probably got that, like, you know, like those MIT students who figured out the perfect way to roll dice when they went to the casino. He's figured out that the D20.
Yeah, just so he can roll natural 20s, I'm sure.
But yeah, that's his character. He's a witch hunter.
Oh,
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. That is right. Apparently there's a rumor that he has his D&D characters tattooed on himself as well.
Oh, that's kind of bad.
I wonder where.
I don't know. Maybe they cover him with makeup when, he takes his shirt off.
Maybe they're on his butt.
Could be.
It'd be fine if
his butt heroes.
Symbol, but the Witcher itself. But I'm trying to stay with the D&D angle. My friend actually sent me this awesome article earlier. It said how to introduce your kid to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I don't know if I shared it with you or not.
Yeah, I read it.
I thought that was a great article. There was another one on IO9 a couple months back or last year, some point, where they said like how to introduce. It was like basically how to introduce your friends to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Another good article.
I think that article. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that is a good place to start with role playing games in general. To me, D&D is probably the best place to start.
I agree.
I think that the D20 system it's complex, but it's simple enough that if you have somebody that knows how to play, you're going to be able to streamline it to get players familiar enough to get playing. The other thing that's great about D&D and the D20 system is that you immediately know you're playing something that is different. You're rolling a different kind of die that you've never rolled before, and it feels magical in some way, right? You're rolling a D20. And the thing that's so easy about it is the game comes down to you roll one die, it's D20, you add a modifier to it, and you're trying to hit a target number. That's it. That's the system.
Yeah, but it's interesting what you're saying. That's good for kids, but kind of like along what Alan is saying, D20 now has so much nerd like lore behind it. So many loot boxes, so many T-shirts it's plastered on.
Yeah.
That it's kind of a detriment to getting your friends to play. I think it's great if you're a kid. Like I think what you're saying, there's kind of an excitement there, but like it's interesting how it's also a negative for an older crowd, I guess.
I guess I would make it has a nerd connotation, and I think that Critical Role and some of the things are breaking that barrier down as people realize that role playing is basically just what you used to do on the playground, but with some kind of rules. So when you say, "Hey, I shot you, you're dead," you can figure out if you actually did that.
Right, yeah, you can't be like, "I threw up my force field."
Right.
But I think people have
I mean, you can, but
negative idea about the games they used to play on the playgrounds. Like
right.
I'm not going to spend 3 hours doing that. Yeah.
It's childish.
Okay, but you know what else is a good example of it? Is the Dan Harmon show.
Oh, yeah. Harmon Quest.
Harmon Quest, yeah.
Harmon Quest
really
is great.
Good.
Yeah. Dan Harmon's kind of whatever for me. But...
After I saw Harmon Quest, and the community episode where they played D&D.
Right.
And the IT crowd episode where they played D&D. I'm like, okay, I want to play D&D. I'll give it a shot.
Right. And I think it's breaking some barriers down. But I think D&D is a really good place to start. There's a lot of other systems, and there's simpler systems. But D&D, first of all, is what people first think of when they're thinking about role-playing games. So they understand, oh, I'm playing a hero from the medieval times, and I'm rolling this D20, and this is they sort of can like make that connection rather than trying to approach people with, hey, here's this other type of system that uses all D10s, or there's some weirdness there. Or like it's also a little bit easier, I think, to get people invested in the idea that they're playing a fantasy character rather than, okay, you're playing a human, but you're just in a paranormal world.
Sure.
Anyway.
Right, but I think Alan's point of how do you get just your friend who would love it if they gave it a shot.
Yeah, how to
because D20 is still strange to them as 610s or whatever you're talking, 1060
right.
or whatever you're talking about.
Right.
So, yeah, I feel like it's a mixed bag. I've got, you're always going to have that mixed bag of a couple of your friends are going to be like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. But there's always, one or two non-believers, I guess.
Sure. And I think, that article does a really good job of saying,
them, right? Yeah, that article said, like, have some drinks, have some food, make it fun for them.
Right, but I think the more important thing with the article was...
Well, the kid article, not have drinks with your
kid.
Not
the drink. Yeah. Have some drinks for your kid.
Get them
juice boxes.
Get them into it.
I'm talking about the adult article, not the kid article.
Let's clarify. So what the article does is a guy, he's basically trying to get his kids to play D&D. He played D&D growing up. It's a huge nostalgia factor for him. He wants to pass this thing down to his children, which I think is amazing. And he wants to share this collaborative storytelling experience with them. And he tries to play the game with them, and the kids hate it. They're like, man, this is boring. I'm going to go play with my cell phone. And I'm like, okay. Then he doesn't give up, which is great. He goes, okay, how do I streamline this? How do I get these kids interested in this? And what he realizes is get people rolling dice as fast as possible. They still have to make their characters because they need that investment. Don't use pre-made characters. I totally agree with that. Get people rolling dice as quickly as possible. He said that he likes to do 3 combat encounters per session, which is way too many for me. But if you're focused on a group that is kicking in the door and killing the monsters, three combat's great.
So you think 3 is good for like an adult group? Or you're trying to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, I think 3 is way too many for an adult group because then you're too focused on combat, which is only half of what a role-playing game is about. Right. But it's a good place to start.
Right. I think that's what's interesting though, is like in the first round, I think it's okay. If your first game with noobs is a tutorial, then 3, so they can get by the 3rd match, they should be comfortable with their character and be doing stuff without prompting the DM.
Right. No, it's a good point.
Need to do.
Yeah.
So instead of all the games need to have 3 per game.
Right. Okay, I see what you're saying. For sure. So the other thing is, he had them all play fighters, and I agree if you're trying to get kids to play.
If you're trying to get kids to play, that's fine. But if you got, like, I know in my group of friends, some of them will want...
They want different flavors. Okay, so I'm going to...
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask Alan what your first character was. Do you remember what first character you picked?
Yeah. I actually dug out the book here, and the first character I created is a halfling paladin.
Right.
First character.
Which according to a different article I was reading, I think he linked to it in the one you sent, is a pretty unpopular class and race. Right. And I did the same thing. I picked a halfling bard, which are very low on the totem pole of popularity.
I mean, like the easy characters to be like, so like I have my friend here, he picked a dwarf. I have another friend here who picked an elf, which, those are your standard, right?
Yeah, top 4.
It was humans. Humans, elves, half elves, and dwarves was the top 4 played, which makes sense. I mean, that's Tolkien's races, right? So.
Right. And then if you want to create, like, I don't know, I think I had a friend who, one of my friends was a dwarf cleric. You had a unique spin on it, right?
Yeah.
So I want to back up a little bit. I'm going to talk about my first game playing Dungeons and Dragons, and the first character that I made. So first session, never played before. I had an idea of what it was, but I wasn't really sure. And I had read Dragonlance. I had read those books, and I sort of realized they were connected to D&D, but I didn't really know how. And the first character I roll up is a sorcerer.
Because you liked Raceland.
And I named him...
Raceland? Don't tell me.
Oh, man.
Because Raceland's amazing, first of all.
From what?
Raceland is a badass.
He's a freaking badass. Yeah, he's from Dragonlance.
Oh.
And basically, the way that I ended up playing it was I wanted to play as that character. I wanted to be able to tell more stories as a character. So I almost approached it like fan fiction, right?
Sure.
And I think if you're trying to get somebody to play who is apprehensive, let them play a character they already know.
Oh.
That's not a bad idea.
Let them build a character who is from something, a fantasy or novel or whatever that they already love, and just say, look, you don't even, like, you maybe they're not going to have as much investment in them, but like by the end of that first session, I was invested in that character, and I played them for a while longer until I started making my own characters. But
that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think it's just an easy way to lower the barrier to entry.
So, like,
you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, you've read Forgotten Realms, obviously. I think you and I talk about this. Like, one of my favorite characters I made was based on Drea Stewart, you know?
Yeah. Right. I think that's what ends up happening a lot is that, you know, whenever you first are learning something, you imitate, you know?
But you have a good point there. Like, making a character that I can relate to another character made it a lot more fun when I was first learning.
This is actually something I do as a DM when people are making their characters. Is one of the things that I require is that you come up with 2 to 3 characters that already exist that your character is like.
That's not bad.
And it helps to influence the personality of the character. Yeah. Suddenly they're realizing that, oh, you know, well, the Joker or whatever would make decisions like this. So maybe my character does that.
Joker will be a goofy-ass character running around that world. I'll say that right now.
Well, so Raistlin, arguably neutral evil. I mean, he's out for himself. And like, I don't think you should let players play evil characters to start out with. I think it's a terrible idea. And yeah, this campaign devolved into debauchery in which I framed. We were asked to murder someone. We were basically a mercenary assassin crew.
Oh.
We were asked to murder someone. We went to that person and said, "Hey, pay us money, and we won't kill you. And instead, we'll go kill them." They wouldn't pay us the money, so we killed him. And then I hid the decapitated head in one of our friends' bags, and then got him arrested.
You're not a really nice friend.
Yeah.
I saved him from jail afterward.
You put him in prison, and then you had to break him out.
Yeah.
That's on his permanent record forever, though.
So anyway, yeah, I think that. Why don't you talk about your first experience a little bit?
Well, I think it was interesting because, like, I remember vividly what it was like to, like, play make-believe games with my sister and how much fun it was in the world we create. But then, yeah, when you're sitting around a table with, I mean, the group we ended up playing with were kind of 4 strangers to me. 2 of them were friends of yours, and 2 of them were just people we met.
Yeah.
We're all down to play D&D, which is great. But, like, we're all a little shy. We're all a little shy of the role-playing aspect. So it's funny because the bard I picked, a lot of the traits or the character, the skills were, like, you know, role-playing things. Like, mage hand and shit that doesn't come in handy for battles or anything. Right. So I basically use like 2 spells like the entire first 6 months.
Oh, and one thing, I think this is just a suggestion off the top of my head that made me realize something that came up early on is like you wanted to use like Tasha's Hideous Laughter, right? And so this is a spell that makes...
No, I want to use tickling. I want to use my mage hand to tickle.
Oh yeah, you want to use your mage hand to tickle them, right?
I want to tickle them to get their information instead of like hurting them.
And the DM like shuts it down. He's like, nah, it doesn't work.
No, it works. I got like a 17. I got 17, and he's like, you tickle him, but it doesn't do anything.
Right. And I think this is actually a big problem, especially with new players, is make sure that as a DM, you use the first rule of improv, which is yes and. You say yes as often as you can, and then you also say, and then what? What else do you do? What do you do next?
Well, yeah, well, it's interesting to see our group change because, like, yeah, we'll see, new, semi-new. So, like, 4 of us were new, and 2 were you and Dom were used to playing.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to see us open up, but it took, like, several sessions and, like, 6 months worth, you know? But yeah, now we're so attached to our characters, and we kind of know what to expect from them. Like, oh, don't tell this character because she's gonna poison them, or like.
Right, and I mean that's another thing to bring up too. Is I think with first characters and first campaign, let it be silly. Let just everybody's having a good time. Don't try to run a serious campaign. Don't try to run a serious
don't shoot them
plot with twists and turns.
Well, and that was funny because this was a very battle heavy. The DM style was very we have encounters, and then one of my favorite memories was 6 months in, we went to a fair and I had a eating contest because my character loves to eat, and someone had archery contest. You know what? So I got our personality.
I killed the guy.
Did you kill a guy?
Yes, I did. You don't remember?
No.
Okay, let me.
Well, he's an assassin, so
I'm playing a rogue assassin who's like a bruiser, who jumps in feet first into murdering people. So it was in character.
But yeah, I mean, so I think ramping up to role playing when everyone's kind of oh, I don't know, I don't know you, and I'm scared to show you my weird.
Yeah, it takes a while to ramp up to that level of comfort when you're willing to portray another character who you are not. It's just
Well, that's why it's easier to try to round up some people you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
That's true. Being comfortable with the people you're playing with is very important.
But you're saying, it's hard to find people to play with.
Oh yeah, so I've actually gone as far as now. A mutual friend of ours, Brian Colin. He's working on his own. So, like we're talking about role-playing games. So there's the Fate core system.
Yeah.
His own role-playing game for his series based on using the Fate system as his core set of rules, I think. And then I think it's I have not researched enough about Fate. I have the manual, but 600 pages. Or whatever it is. But he's building his whole world on that, and he's trying to do I've asked him about doing Dungeons and Dragons online because I have several friends who do hangout calls, right? It's not the same as being in the room with your friends.
Yeah.
But it is a way to play the game with your friends if you want to. So he's trying to run his own game actually using this Fate core system, which I don't know if it's easier than D&D. It uses six dice versus the 20.
Right, six-sided die.
Six-sided die, but they're specifically designed for the Fate core.
Right, they have kind of their own dice.
Their own dice, yeah. Which I guess on one hand is kind of smart marketing, but I've never done an online game. I've never tried playing anything, a role-playing game, using a Hangouts call. So we're all supposed to try it out next week. So we'll see how it goes. And I was like, if I can get something like that to work, you can run it. I get it. You D&D, it's fun to play in the same room, but if you can play with your friends online, it's kind of nice to.
Well, there's a lot of new tools for that too. There's D&D Beyond, and there's also
that roll the dice for you or something.
There's Obsidian Portal, which is a place online to sort of gather all your campaign information, and you can have people sign up, and it's actually a community of people. You could find players there too. And then there's Roll20. Roll20 is the other thing that I think most people were using. I think D&D Beyond is trying to pick that up and do their own thing with it. But Roll20 lets you do maps, and you basically have a battle mat that's online.
Yeah, I see that.
And you can roll dice on there, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of tools now to be able to play online that weren't there before. And I think that's coming from, younger, I guess, millennial generation people that are now older and still want to play D&D and aren't near their friends anymore. So they hop online and play.
Yeah.
I follow a Instagrammer who plays with a bunch of strangers, but online.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's just, being lonely or wanting to be able to play and you don't know anyone to play with.
Welcome to my world. I've talked to Gavin several times of doing it online, and I understand that it's not that fun for you. So
we should try online.
Dude,
we should play.
I think we should try it.
Look at these apps. I mean, there's obviously 3 of them.
The reason why I'm somewhat against it is there's a magic that happens when you're in a room with the people
I agree.
You got the tone right. You got the lights turned down a little bit.
I want to play with Alan.
You're pumping the Zeppelin on the radio. I'm just kidding. You're not. But there's certain things I think that add to the experience when you're in the same room together, looking at each other face to face, that I don't know if you can necessarily achieve when you're talking to a video camera.
Did I ever tell you about when I played H.P. Lovecraft's RPG?
Oh, did you play Call of Cthulhu?
I Call of Cthulhu. I have a friend who lives in California named Jeremy.
Yeah.
It was like...
I've heard that one's great.
So this was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. He's like, you guys want to play the Call? He's all about Lovecraft and Cthulhu. And I was like, sure, we'll play. We'll come over tomorrow and play. It's myself, it's my buddy Kurt, and it's him. He's the DM. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's fucking sunny California. We get to his house. He's got all his windows covered with tarp, so none of us can see out the window. It's pitch black in there. And go off to the corner with just a couple candles on it. His stuff on one side and 2 chairs on the other side. I'm like, I'm gonna take the side closest to that wall because I didn't want to look down this dark hallway. He had 2 soundtracks playing. He had one soundtrack with like scary like wind noises, and one with like old house creaking type noises. And it's like, you know, like all sorts of sounds. And I was like, fuck, this is borderline scary. Okay,
I cannot criticize this guy because I do the same thing for D&D.
Which at the time it was happening, I was like, I had a mixed bag of emotions. I had a mixed bag of like, I'm not comfortable mixed with this is kind of cool, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the point, right?
Well, then there's a point where like he got real into his character.
Yeah.
He started like fucking banging on the table.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you need to stop that because you're freaking me out. You know, like.
No. Okay, so this is actually really, really important. That when people have different experience levels with role playing, they have different experience levels understanding what's in character and what's not in character. So what you need to do, especially with a new group, is establish that, hey, there are 2 different modes here. One is in character, one is out of character. And an easy way to do it is that you put your hand on your shoulder. So you put your hand on your shoulder, you are out of character. This is signaling, hey, I need to say something outside of the game. And you can also come up with a signal if somebody is uncomfortable.
Like a safe word?
Sort of like a safe word.
Or like a safe word.
Yeah. Now we're getting a little sexy.
Banana.
Banana Ram was a good one.
Go with banana. Like Drea keeps saying banana. What does that mean?
Banana.
Like tapping your shoulder.
Banana. No, that's weird. I think that's too.
I think
experience level. Like we didn't do that. We would talk out of character, and then the DM would go, "So are you really saying that to this like guard?" And we're like, no.
Right. So this is. I think it's good to establish these rules early on. But yeah, people aren't going to get it at first.
Yeah.
So be okay with it. But here's the thing. Here's the problem: is that when you get into a group with varying levels of role playing experience, and there are certain people that like to push boundaries while they're role playing. And it can get weird.
Oh.
So it's good to realize that if you're the dungeon master, this sounds really kinky now, and it's not. If you're the game master.
Somewhere we didn't want it to go, Gavin. Back
dungeon
it up.
Master, safe word. It can get weird, y'all.
No.
Banana, Gavin. Banana.
Let me get. I want out. Let me give an example. All right. If somebody is triggered by suicide, if they're triggered by murder, if they're triggered by any kind of sexual harassment stuff, like these are things that can come up in D&D even almost without realizing it.
Sure. So
this needs to be a safe environment for everyone. As a DM, what I would do, I don't think I would tell everyone, hey, have a signal. I would say if something is making you uncomfortable, say you need to take a break.
Can you give an example
you need to take a bathroom break
where this actually happened?
I don't think he wants to. That's fine.
I'm gonna say I'll pass.
Well, the next thing I was gonna ask is I think we should all talk about like one of our favorite role playing experiences or D&D experiences or whatever. Because I just read an article. I don't know if you did, Alan, of a girl. She was talking about her group did like a one shot where they all picked the same class. So they were all bards, and the idea was that they were a traveling pop punk band, like but like bard style, like D&D style.
So good.
And it was
great fucking
hilarious.
idea.
Yeah, and it was so funny, and I loved reading it. And I'm like, yeah, some of my favorite experiences are these like weird.
So I played with my friend. It was me and one guy DMing and 2 other friends, and I played a barbarian.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it was they were both halflings. Oh no, one was an elf and one was a halfling. And anytime we need to attack, we would do our main attack was a fastball special, like from X-Men.
Yeah, you throw the halfling at him.
Throw them, yeah. So, like, depending on how far I need to hit a target, I would pick either the elf or the halfling. And yeah, if you can have fun with it like that, it's that cool atmosphere, right? Because like I remember trying to explain that to the DM who had apparently never read an X-Men comic in his life.
Yeah.
I was like, Colossus picks up Wolverine and chucks him. And he's like, you need to roll for that. I'm like, I'm aware.
My character's real buff.
Like, are we doing this? Like, I picked the barbarian on purpose,
His name's Vin Diesel.
Yeah. I don't even think Vin Diesel was acting when I did that, Go ahead and steal that, Vin. Get it tattooed while you're at it.
All right.
Okay,
so that you're...
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you count games like video games like World of Warcraft and like Final Fantasy and I'm missing one, EverQuest?
Yeah.
Like, do you count those as role-playing games?
So that's a big subject change, and we'll come back around to it because I want everybody to share their favorite experiences first. So we'll hit that right after this. So that's your favorite experience? Is Fastball Special?
My favorite experience actually was that is probably that Cthulhu game because it escalated to a point where at some point I had to call for a timeout to go use the bathroom, and it was so dark down that hallway. I was like, man, if one of your friends is waiting back there to scare me.
Oh my God.
And God knows Alan don't like to get scared.
I don't like to get scared. I like horror movies, but I hate it when people jump out of corner and scare me. I'm watching Nancy back here in case she tries something. But I remember, like, usually when you do those kind of games with your friends, you do your best to save your friends no matter what's happening to them. Yeah. And I remember it was just me and my buddy Kurt, and we were in a haunted house. Obviously, it's Cthulhu. And I remember he went to kick the door to the basement open. I said, "Don't kick that door open, man. I don't know what's behind it."
Right.
And he kicked it open and he fell into the basement.
Yeah.
And the DM was like, "What are you gonna do now?" And I was like, "I'm just gonna go." I'm like, "I'm just gonna leave."
Oh my God, I have a story like that too.
Oh God. Yep. Yeah. See, I don't like being scared.
Alan.
That's a rare shot of me walking.
Bigfoot Alan.
But yeah, I left. I left my friend, and my friend was really upset with me. He's like, "You really gonna leave me?" I'm like, "Let me tell you something right now, buddy. In real life, if we happen to be in a haunted house, you kick open a door I tell you not to kick open, and you fall into the basement full of zombies, I'm out.
I'm leaving your ass.
Like, I'm not gonna let myself get killed trying to save your ass."
Yeah.
So that was a funny experience for me. I'd say that was one of my favorites.
Gotcha. Okay. You want to go next?
There you go.
Okay. All right.
You can hold up those photos now while Gavin's talking so people can see it.
Wait, where are you bringing these photos? No, not while I'm talking. Come on.
Okay, good.
All right. So it's really distracting. Because Alan is so sexy. So I guess I have two. I'm going to share two quick ones, I guess. So I had one. This is the first time this player had ever played a role-playing game, and she wasn't quite grasping it yet.
And you were the DM.
And I was the DM. Yeah, I was DMing. And I was trying to figure out how to get her to engage in the game, because I'm like, okay, what? She didn't really have a lot of agency in her character. She had based her character off of what's her name, Celine from Underworld.
Okay. Oh, the vampire.
Kate Beckinsale's character. She had based her off that, and so she was just this rogue, and she was just stabbing stuff. And I was like, okay, how do I get some investment here? And so what I ended up doing was they were in a combat encounter. She got a critical hit by one of the bad guys that were fighting them, and they cut her arm off.
Well, technically, Gavin cut her arm.
All right, I cut her arm off, and at first she was baffled. She was like, "Wait, you can do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you just got your your sword arm just got cut off," because she was leaning too heavily into like, all my character does is stab things. So I'm like, okay, now you can't stab things, which seems like a dick thing to do, but it opened up the fact that now she had to kind of think about her character. And over time, what ended up happening was, I planted story seeds into the game where she gets to a new place, and the clergy of this town takes her in and heals her. They give her arm back, but she converts to the faith at that point and becomes a cleric because they basically saved her life.
Sure.
And suddenly her character had so much more of a dynamic, right? So that was one of my favorite moments.
You helped her develop that character, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's sort of like it gave her a story. And then one of my other favorite moments.
You played God and it worked out.
Right. It worked out in that case. It doesn't always work out.
Drea comes in with the right answers.
So my other favorite moment was I had a sorcerer a sorcerer playing in one of my games, and he stole this book. He stole this ancient spell book, and it was a possessed item, which is one of those like, oh, it's kind of tropey or whatever. But this possessed item was turning him into a lich, basically.
Oh, yeah.
It was turning him undead, and he didn't know it.
Cool.
He didn't know it at first. Basically, he just thought he had gotten sick. He's like, well, I don't understand what's going on, and like he's trying to eat food at the inn, and it turns to rot in his mouth. He's trying to eat this food, it just rots, and he's like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't get it. And then his touch started to become cold to people, and eventually he kind of started to understand what was going on, but his friends in the party didn't. And so he gets hurt. He's hurt real bad, and said cleric, who is converted from a rogue to a cleric, goes to heal him. And for those of us that don't understand how this works, if you're undead and someone heals you with holy magic, it hurts you.
Yep.
So she goes up to him, tries to heal him to save his life, and kills him. I guess I messed with her way more than I realized. Now that I'm thinking about
First, you cut off her arm, give it back, then you're like, go and heal your friend. Oh, you killed him.
Yeah.
Isn't that a very nice DM?
Yeah.
And at any rate, the players actually figured out a way to save him. I don't remember exactly what they did, but I'm pretty sure they polymorphed him into a frog somehow, and he basically became a frog. And he didn't play that character anymore. The frog was sort of an NPC. He rolled a new character. But they were trying to figure out a way to like restore him back to not being undead anymore. So that was two of my favorite moments.
You're a clever DM. You're not a nice DM.
Yeah.
I am nice.
I know, that's what I said. I'm like, that's
You're
really
clever,
cool.
though. I'll give you that.
That's really, really cool what you did with that girl, but don't ever do that to me.
Drea's like, I'll cut a bitch. 2 arms.
My favorite moments and so far have been like really like, I don't know, organic, kind of like silly, like seeing someone come into their character. But like one was totally accidental, where it was pretty early on, and it's 3 women and 3 men, and one of the men is a DM, so it's 2 characters. Gavin's a fucking know-it-all over here, and then Matt knew a lot of the rules, so it was us 3 girls who were pretty new to it.
Yeah. And
there was one where Gavin's a rogue, and we're trying to save a church of people, and he's like, okay, well, I roll to like, I'm gonna roll over these barrels and like come up the side of the building, and he rolled 1s and like 2s. So he's like, DM's like, well, you crash into the barrels and you trip over that, and then the barbarian, the guy was a barbarian, and he's like, okay, well, I decided, I'm gonna bust through the door, like I'm gonna kill these kobolds, and he kept rolling 1s and 2s. So it's like the archer, me, the bard, and the tiefling.
She's a sorceress.
Yeah. Fucking saved the day. And it was fucking hilarious because roll after roll, every time you guys tried to do anything, they rolled 1s or 2s. So we were like rolling 15s and 20s and 18s, and we went in and we're like, save this girl, save this church. You're still stuck up there. Oh, you apparently fell off the building. Like that was one. That was, and I feel like that, like it was so funny and organic. And I think after that, we all kind of loosened up and opened up. Like at least us women who are kind of shy, because you guys were just spitting off rules. It's like, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna roll, and like 3 people go, you roll a 6, you roll the 6 die, and I'm like, okay, like Jesus, let me figure it out for a second. Yeah. So it was really fun that we got to like get some independence, save the day.
Someone had to save the day. Clearly, those dudes are fucking up.
Oh man.
Yeah,
it was a rogue.
If you can get a game like that together, I think that's the way to do it. Like, let people do what they want, and try not to be too hard on them. Like, don't cut off their arms.
Don't cut off their arms.
Don't poison them. Turn into a lich. Things like that,
I love how both of my stories are me like torturing players, but like I'm not really that kind of DM. Well, it just worked out in those moments.
I've only played a couple of games where Gavin DM'd, and one of the I was scared because I knew these stories, and I'm like, he's like, this guy's being a real asshole. What are you guys gonna do? And I'm like, I really want to stab him, but like, I'm afraid I'm gonna get punished. But I stabbed him in the leg anyway. And Gavin was like, he throws you out the window. I was like, fuck!
You stabbed his friend. What do you think's gonna happen?
That's what happens.
Wait, what was the next thing?
Okay, so let's come back around to you were bringing up. How do I feel about?
I bought those 3 games up because I actually back in the day tried playing World of Warcraft for maybe a week.
Yeah.
Right. And in the back of my head, I was like, this is going to take up a lot of my time, which any game you want to play will. But I stopped. Right. Plus, also, you have to pay for that monthly. But in the last, like, I don't know, 3 weeks, I've been paying for, I set it up. I'm paying monthly for it, but I set it up in 3 weeks ago again, Final Fantasy 14, which the game my friends convinced me to play. And initially I was like, there's a lot of information going through your head here. I don't know if World of Warcraft is set up the same way. They appear to look identical as far as setup.
Yeah. Which game are you talking about? Sorry.
Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've heard good things. It's
a beautiful game. It's a little complicated right now for me because I don't know what the hell I'm doing half the time.
Okay.
But I'm having fun with it.
Okay. Let me back up just a little bit because I have to talk about Final Fantasy for just a second. I played Final Fantasy 11, which was the first online Final Fantasy game, and it was the best online game I have ever played in my life. However, the first time I played this game, I created my character. I was in the main town. I go running in, and the first person I run into only speaks Japanese.
Yeah,
I have no idea what's going on. So the way that the Final Fantasy MMOs are set up is that they are not very user friendly. They basically throw you into a world in which you need to be in a party with other people. I'm not sure if 14 is exactly the same, but in Final Fantasy 11, you could not even kill monsters unless you were in a group of people.
Like
World of Warcraft is not built that way. World of Warcraft is very easy. So as far as connecting the dots between, video games that are role-playing games and pen and paper games that are role-playing games, to me, they are dynamically different. They're on almost opposite ends of the spectrum because D&D is not about, it's not about having special abilities that your character uses and you're getting in and you're working together to kill bad guys. I mean, it's partially about that, but the parts of a pen and paper role-playing game that a video game will more than likely never be able to accomplish is that you get to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You are presented with a situation that you get to decide how you handle in any fashion, and I don't think a video game will ever be able to do that. And not only that, you're doing it in a social setting with other people. You're collaboratively telling a story together. And Skyrim is good. World of Warcraft is good. Final Fantasy 14, I hear, is really good, but it doesn't capture the same magic. And not only that, you're not using your imagination in the same way.
Yeah, and
you're collaboratively telling this story together in which you are the heroes. And I don't think a video game can capture that in the same way.
I mean, I think they've tried to make it open world, but there's limits still, right? There's always
going to be limits because you're constrained to memory on a computer. But let me talk about one thing real quick that was weird for me. So I started playing D&D in 3rd edition. I then went on to play 3.5 and Pathfinder. Then I played 4th edition D&D. And what basically happened was towards the end of 3.5 and Pathfinder, D&D started to get its ass handed to it by video games. Wizards of the Coast was very concerned about this and decided to say, hey, how can we appeal to the 8 million players that play World of Warcraft? How do we get some of that? How do we get them to play D&D? And the design team said, we make D&D more like World of Warcraft. And I'm sitting here going, this is the worst idea you could ever come up with because you're not World of Warcraft. Why aren't you focusing on the things that make you unique and different instead of saying, hey, you know what, you like playing that MMO where you got these abilities that are on cooldowns that you can use all the time and all this combat stuff. Well, now you can do it, but it's way less efficient. Like, of course you're just going to go play video games. Why would you waste your time when they're not focusing on
the thing that makes them unique and
the
special.
Thing that makes them unique and different? And 4th edition was arguably one of the worst editions of D&D. It sold terribly as far as I know. And it had a few gems. The way that you build combat encounters in 4th edition is way better than any other edition I've seen. I don't know why they didn't keep that for 5th edition. Way better.
I heard 5th edition is a lot more.
So 5th edition, I think, is really good. I think that 5th edition, they realized the problem that they did, which is exactly what I'm talking about with 4th ed, is that they went the other direction and went, no, we're a role-playing game. We need to figure out a way to tell people that and get people interested in the role-playing side of this. And we need to encourage writing character backgrounds. That's now part of the rules. You can choose a background character or a background story for your character, and it affects your character in their stats and the equipment that they have, and they built that into the system in a way that they haven't done before. And the other thing that they're doing is they've even changed the way that they design their books. So when books come out, they're no longer focused solely on, oh, what's a new cool class I can play, or what's a new prestige class, or what are these new feats? And if you've never played role-playing games, you have no idea what any of this stuff means. But they're very focused on stats. They're very focused on, okay, how do I make my character cooler in combat, or do these things or whatever. And in 5th ed, they try to make books that appeal to everyone who's playing the game. So they try to make each book appeal to dungeon masters and players together, which I think is not a great idea, to be honest.
I think they did it so it's easier to understand for new players.
I think it's part of it, but I think they also wanted to say, okay, we're gonna make less books, but we want each person to have a reason to buy every book.
Sure.
And the problem when you do that is you end up with books that don't really appeal to anyone because they're trying to appeal to everyone. So I'm finding myself now where in 3rd edition, every month I wanted to buy a new book. Whether I was DMing or playing, there was something coming out that I was interested in.
Right.
And now
5th edition has a couple new add-ons.
Yeah, books come out a little less often, and they're themed. There's a lot more lore to them, and they're interesting. But I'm not finding myself buying them. I'm looking at them going, eh. And then the ones I did buy, we bought Xanathar's
Guide to Everything.
Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which is came out with new classes and new items and new spells, new stuff for DMs. It just has a bunch of stuff in it, and its flavor is there's this beholder, which beholder is like a floating head thing with a bunch of eyeballs, and they're like really scary. They have big mouths.
Little notes on each page. He's funny.
Right, and they've created all this flavor in this book, and they spent a lot of time doing it. And that book's good. I think that book was really well done. But I also bought Volo's Monster Guide. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's flavored in like there's this guy who documents monsters, and it's got notes from him and all this stuff. And it basically took some of the most iconic monsters from Dungeons and Dragons and tries to like expand upon each of them. So they have like the orcs, and like here's the orc culture, and here's what's and I'm reading through it, and I'm just going, this is just. Part of it might be because I'm a very experienced player at this point, and I kind of already know this stuff.
That's kind of what I was going to say.
But part of the problem too is that it didn't do anything new. It didn't do anything really unique. Like
it might not have done anything new or unique for you, but as a
possibly. I mean, maybe that's part of the problem. But it's like
that's why they put out the starter pack, right?
Right, but I'm looking at like, okay, here's this book, and I bought it because I wanted to use orcs in a unique way, and I was hoping that this book was going to have info that was going to allow me to do that better. I read through the info, and I'm like, this is literally just exactly stuff that I already knew about orcs, and why did I buy this book? Like,
yeah, but exactly.
Just give me the book, I'll take it.
right, and maybe that's what it is that it's a book that is designed for
okay,
new
so
players.
video games have mods, like Skyrim has mods, like maybe like Alan's saying, these books are more designed to get in a new audience. People watching Stranger Things, people watching that random episode.
I mean, the whole point of the starter thing, I guarantee you, if Gavin read this starter pack, he'd be like, I don't need this. I already know all this, right?
Oh, shit.
Of course. Of course I would.
Why did I spend money on this? Why didn't I read the book before I bought it? I already know this stuff about orcs. Why did I buy this book?
So you're 15 years of playing under your belt. Maybe your thing is to look up forums and see what other people are modding. Like the girl article who she wrote where they're all bards. Like that was really interesting. That you're not going to find in the book.
Well, but I think that's a detriment to Dungeons and Dragons, right? That's a detriment to Wizards that they're not also honoring the players have been playing for a long time. And I'm thinking back to 3.5, and literally every book that came out was something new and interesting. It was like, oh, now this is how you build strongholds, and I guess that's a new thing that's coming out soon again. But like,
maybe they decided they don't want to focus so hard on the old players because you guys are still playing, and they want to focus on new players because they're losing them all to, like you said, to these games, right?
Well, I think there's some truth to that because they do the same thing in Magic the Gathering. I think that's sort of what Wizards has decided to do is focus on new players and worry less about their core fan base. But okay, so in marketing, there's a term called your promoters, right? They're your brand advocates.
Yep.
These are people who are heavily invested in your thing, and they're the ones who are your word of mouth sales. They're the ones who say, you got to play this. This is amazing. And if you're ignoring them,
I think a larger percentage of the players still like 5th edition, though. Is what I'm saying.
I think 5th edition is good, but my problem is, where's the content for me?
Right.
You're in the lower percentage.
Well, I'm a brand advocate. I'm telling people right now, go play D&D.
Right, I'm not disagreeing with you on that,
but also, yeah, and like it's reaching a point now where it's in pop culture and TV shows, and you know, I listed off several things that like had an episode about it that I got a pretty good feel of what D&D
Sure.
was like. So yeah, I think if you're that much of an aficionado, maybe you're going on the forums, you're having conversations on what are cool things I can do. But
yeah.
I forgot my point. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. One question.
Yeah.
If it was not for me, would you ever have played Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, you know, honestly, no, because I knew you. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay.
That's my point.
Whatever.
yeah, it helps if you know someone who is. That's the whole point. If you don't know somebody who plays, you're not gonna be like, I think I want to try this out.
Well, that's a good point too. And like because I knew Gavin as someone who's a little more uncomfortable, someone a little more introverted, and wants to, you know, not maybe made fun of or whatever. Like it was nice to have someone on my side, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I signed up for Final Fantasy, I had 2 other friends who were like, "We'll run it with you," you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. Speaking of that, when you guys visit for C2E2, we should set up a game and get Nancy to play.
Yeah, one shot.
That could be fun.
Still right there.
But we're focusing so much on like just D&D in general, but I think a big bar for people is how much role play it is. Like there isn't a lot to look at. Okay, like we're talking about with Skyrim or these video games. It's like you're right. You know, when I come in, I love Skyrim, but yeah, when you get into an interaction, it's like, here are your options. And so many times, especially early on in the game we're playing, we were looking at Gavin because the only other really skilled player, like longtime player, was the DM. And so we're looking at Gavin like, what's he going to do? Like,
what do we do? Yeah.
We're talking to a guard or we're talking to a hostage. And it's like, what do we do? And Gavin sometimes would be like, you're on your own. And we like fumble and like trip over ourselves. So like, what are things we could do that help people get comfortable with role playing? Like I think that's so important. That's kind of glossed over and missed.
Well, that's where it comes in handy to have a DM who's gonna like not try to kill you, but try to like get you to enjoy the experience. Yeah. I wasn't taking a dig at you.
I was gonna say I need to make sure I clarify that killing players is really not something that I do.
Right. I wasn't taking a dig at you. I played with DMs who make it like who would make it so difficult to enjoy the game.
Yeah. So there's this idea that DMs are your final boss.
Like they are your god.
They are your adversary. They're trying to kill you, and you're trying to best them. And that is not a good way to play this game. I don't think so. I don't think it's a good way.
No, I agree with you. It's not. That you if your players aren't having a good time and enjoying it, like people will get hurt, things will get destroyed. But if they're not having a good time in the process, they're never going to come back to play the next time with you.
Right. As a DM, your goal is to make sure your players are having a great time.
Yeah, that is your main goal.
Period. But so some things to get over that hump.
Well, I will say the 5 did some good things of like rolling, like, okay, what's maybe a background or a trait or a motivator for your character. But what's interesting is the things I started with, like, I don't know, I'm a folk hero, and like I think one of like my foibles or like quirks was that I say words wrong. So I did it for like one session, and then I forgot about it. But then I ended up growing my own.
Right, and that's something that needs to be definitely okay. Is
that a new addition to 5 though? It's like
what
having rolling traits?
Yeah, that's pretty new. I mean, that was kind of an idea that was there before, but it wasn't necessarily facilitated by the rules like it is now. So I think that's really helpful. I think coming up with some characters that are like your character that already exist is helpful. But you're gonna have to spend some time to get invested in your character, and it's just gonna take time. It's gonna take time of playing
a couple games.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. I mean, it could take up 6 to 10 sessions probably before you really understand that. Oh, my character is like a person in my mind now, and I care for them. And
when you guys play, do you guys play with the voices or do you guys play without?
I do.
Gavin does voice.
I do voices.
I mean, Lou is basically me turned up to like 15, I guess.
That's another way to build a character too, is you take one personality trait of yours and you exaggerate it.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently we have 2 viewers.
Cool.
Whoever's watching, tell me your name. Type it in the chat window.
Tell us your D&D character name. Mine is Luana Tealeaf. She's a halfling bard who loves food and boys.
That's true. I forget that that's a thing. Yeah.
What's yours name?
Oh.
And you're in the voice. Do your
don't do the
voice.
Do it.
Oh, my name's Buckland Albright, but my friends, they call me Buck because I like to fight.
And Alan, what was your character's name?
Oh, what was my character's name? I didn't memorize that.
It's so important.
It's good that I've been talking for a while, so my voice is nice and gravelly. Buckland
was
a
Cade Thorngage.
Kincaid?
Cade.
Kincaid? Thomas Kincaid?
God damn it, I said Cade.
Cade Thorngage.
And Nick said his name was Vim Cag, the Gambling Goliath.
Oh shit, he's got a bun there.
Nick is a smart cookie, I'll tell you that right now. I wasn't surprised with that name at all. Nick's clever like that.
So
okay,
we're going to wrap up soon. But one more thing I wanted to bring up that I think is really interesting. I'm seeing what I'm perceiving to be things happening in pop culture and in modern media that seem to me, the writers of which have been heavily influenced by Dungeons and Dragons and or comics. So I feel like there's a lot of people working in writing for movies and TV shows right now who grew up playing D&D or grew up reading comics and are trying to they're sort of expressing the way that they write through those things. For instance, one of the things that is sticking out in my mind as feeling like a D&D campaign is The Last Jedi. I feel like The Last Jedi, the way that the story weaves back and forth, and whether you like it or not, that's sort of irrelevant. What I'm saying is, okay, so you take the part with what's the new character? There's Rose.
Right? Oh, Rose.
Finn and Rose, yeah. Right? Finn. And they go off to this other.
Their side mission.
They're basically on a side quest. You've split the party, which is never a good idea. But you end up on a side quest where they don't really know what they're doing. They're fumbling through it, and just these sort of seemingly kind of random events are happening. And then they get stuck in prison. And then suddenly, the thing that they've been looking for the whole time just happens to be there. And that to me feels like I was the DM. I had this idea, but the characters went off in this other direction, and then I needed to get them back on track, so I just happened to put the thing that they needed in the prison with them.
Yeah.
And it really didn't make any sense. I was like, what's happening right now? To me, that felt like a clever way to bring a campaign back together, but not a good way to necessarily write a movie.
Right. Yeah,
so,
it was out of control.
I don't know quite how to take that as...
Part of the problem is the quickness with which things need to be put out according to Hollywood standards.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, something that sounds good on the fly that doesn't, maybe with a little more editing would have been smoother or better or something.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to necessarily get into that part of it. What I wanted to get into was people that grew up playing D&D and it feeling like the thing that was so cool, you know? I think that some of it doesn't translate. I think the way that you have to write a D&D campaign doesn't translate to how you write a movie script or how you write something that's like concise storytelling in that kind of a format. And I think you can play a D&D game and you can take all the ideas that you've come up with doing it and organically create it, but you need to edit. You need to go through and figure out what are the actual really good nuggets here and distill them down into something really good, and realize that you can't have the same kind of plot conveniences that you can get away with in D&D. If that's what's happening. I don't know if that's actually what's happening.
You could take what you just said and turn any movie into a D&D campaign.
I don't think so. You know, I look at some of the best, written movies. What do we do? In Bruges? That couldn't have been a D&D game.
I don't know what the hell that movie is.
Watch it. It's amazing. But anyway.
I mean, I get what you're saying. like those individuals probably grew up playing it, and that's probably not a bad idea to use that as a stepping stone starting point to your script writing.
I think it's fine to use it as a starting point, but I think that the detriment might be that.
I don't know if it's D&D though, so much as on the fly writing.
Yeah.
When you're in D&D, you're on the fly.
Well, you're also writing on the fly.
Flight of the Conchords turned down. They said a lot of money to HBO because HBO's like, we want a 3rd season, but it's like we need it in 3 months, and they're like, no, the first season took like 3 years.
Right.
Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
So no.
So yeah, maybe that's really what the problem is that the writing feels on the fly in a way that it is when you're writing for D&D.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the writers need to play more D&D so they get better at it.
Ooh.
Maybe they need some 5th edition.
Burn. Look out. He gonna cut off your arm.
I guess it's easy to be an armchair critic.
Yeah. Hey, you don't know how hard it is, Gavin. Shut your mouth.
All right. We're out of time, so let's do some recommendations.
Drea, you want to go first?
Okay. I just started listening to this podcast called Harry Potter Seminar.
Oh, this is a great recommendation.
I'm going to put a picture of it. So it's Dear Mr. Potter, a Harry Potter seminar. It's backwards, sorry. But it's really pretty good. And what's funny is, like, I've only listened to about, an hour of it, but already he's, like, talked about the first chapter and brought up things that I didn't notice, or, like, after rereading it. I mean, I've reread it several times and I've listened to it on audio books, and it's so awesome to hear someone very excited about it, talking about it, not dissecting it, but like, we're just having a discussion about like, it's what J.K. Rowling is doing and like where the story is going. And he's pointed out things that to me give like a richer understanding of the entire world, but in a great way, not in a bogged down like English class kind of way.
Is he going book by book, or is he going like all over the place?
Well, first, it's funny because this book, he was like, well, we're only doing book 1, but if you look at it, I have about like 60 episodes, I think, or maybe 40 episodes to go through, because he's in, I think, the 4th book already. So I think that people are requesting him to do all of them because he's really great. And it's just so fun to like go, whoa, like
talk about.
That's what the Dursleys represent, or like that's what that scene is doing. Like, it's really cool. Anyway, that's my recommendation.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, Alan, you ready, or you want me to go?
I can go. I didn't really plan fast enough for this. I forgot. But I was talking earlier. So last week I was talking to Eli Manaya. I'm going to call him out twice today on 2 different casts about Gundam robots we started building.
Yeah.
He sent me a couple photos of one that he's working on, and he said it's helping him relax, and it's just kind of the side project thing he's doing. And the more more images he kept saying, the more I kept thinking, I used to build these when I was younger. I loved them. They're not easy to build. I'll tell you that right now. Like, look at the side of this package. I mean,
yeah. That looks
so many
intense.
pieces. Yeah.
So is it snap together, or do you gotta glue it, or what?
This one is. I think this one might be This one might be a snap together. I can't tell. It's on.
And it's already painted?
No, it is.
Oh,
you gotta paint it. See, this is awesome. See, I used to actually put these models together. It comes with like a sticker pack, though, right?
Yeah, it's got a sticker pack. It's got the tiniest effing like pieces I've ever seen.
Holy Jesus.
Yeah, holy Jesus is right. And the craziest thing is, it looks cool. I bought it's 1/44. I bought a little stand for it. Probably take me. I'm guessing this is gonna take me at least a month to build, because I'm not gonna build it all in one sitting. But what's cool is I found, we found some Instagram pages and Twitter pages that have people who aren't building these just straight up. They're building custom versions of this, where they're like picking and choosing. Like, I like the shoulder on this one. I like the face on that one. And I thought that would be a kind of a cool thing to try too. I'm gonna build this first, see how stressed out I get. It's supposed to help me. It's supposed to help me relax, but
start small.
This one was like I think this one is a snap, because this one's only like $16 or something.
Oh yeah,
16.
That's not bad.
16.
Okay.
Right. So I think the higher you go, there's ones that like light up and stuff. I'm like, I'm not ready for that.
Damn, that sounds sweet. Okay.
Does look sweet.
My recommendation is a manga. I actually don't read a whole lot of graphic novels or manga, but this one in particular I felt was very good and interesting. Yeah. So it's called Uzumaki by Junji?
I think it's Junji.
Junji Ito.
Mm-hmm.
It is some of the coolest, weirdest horror, it's fascinating. If you're into Silent Hill, if you're into Resident Evil, if you're into horror in general.
If you're into Ash vs. Evil Dead, I mean, it's got a sense of humor.
It definitely has a sense of humor to it.
Oh, I should have talked about that.
Next one.
I just started watching that show. I actually really like it.
Ash vs. Evil Dead? Yeah, that's great.
Talk about it in the future. Yeah. So that's my recommendation. Check it out.
All right. Well,
wait, one more thing. We now have an email. So if you would like to ask us some questions or anything that you want us to talk about on the show, it is askWDYTA at gmail.com. That's ask, A-S-K, WDYTA at gmail.com.
Yeah, and Alan will probably put it in the box below when he does it.
Yeah, I'll definitely post it in the box when I update this.
Yep. Okay. I think that's it.
That's it, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.